A narcissist never seems to regret anything that they've ever done. In fact, they never seem to even get to the place where they apologize or they come across saying, I'm sorry. Why would they? They didn't do anything wrong in their mind. So why would it actually matter? And why would a narcissist actually want to apologize? Now, that might be true in the majority of the cases out there, but you also might be looking at it and say, like, wait a second, like, my narcissist has actually apologized every once in a while. Like, he's actually said sorry when I've called him out, when I've caught him in different things. That doesn't make sense. Is he a narcissist now? Maybe he's not a narcissist now. Now, I want to be able to first point out that a lot of times people will look at one little nuance and then be able to make the judgment of like they're narcissistic or they're not narcissistic. Narcissism is defined in the DSM-5 with 9 different characteristics, and you need to have at least 9 of them to be considered a narcissist, and the habitual pattern of it actually happening in the relationship, in their life for a long period of time. So like, don't make the judgment really quick just off of that. Just because they do or they don't apologize or say that they're sorry doesn't mean that they are or they aren't a narcissist. Okay, now, first off, that's just to make sure everybody's clear on that. Second off, if you don't know who I am, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations, the creator of the NARC app, and your guide in the Escape Toxicity, the 7-day challenge to healing. The 7-day challenge to healing is housed at escapetoxicity.com. It's $7 for 7 days that you can start to dive in and understand narcissistic abuse, reactive abuse, and to show up in a way in a community there that's helping support you as you continue to go through your healing journey. So check that out. Go to escapetoxicity.com. Well, when we talk about narcissists that apologize, it normally seems like an oxymoron. Like a narcissist that apologizes normally never even happens. Where like typically this isn't the norm. This doesn't actually come about on a typical day where a narcissist will be like, hey, I'm sorry that I did this. I was wrong. Let me change that. And that's typically because with grandiose, with overt narcissists, we typically don't see it ever. Like at all. Like there's no apology. There's no thought process of that. Now, typically it's because there's no regret. There's no remorse for the actions that have actually happened. Why should I have remorse for you when I did something that I was entitled to do? When this is something that I felt like I should be allowed to do or that I was able to do. So there's an aspect of like, because the entitlement, why should there even be an apology? For a lot of narcissists, the aspect of an apology means weakness. Like it means that I'm not good enough in the aspect of, hey, I've been a perfect person. Now I'm not good enough. That shows weakness. That shows that I'm not the person that I said I was going to be. It shows this disconnect, this incongruence of the narcissist and the mask that they actually put up. So for me, like I never wanted to apologize because that was like a chink in my armor. That was like exposing. That was the vulnerability piece of like, wait a second, if I open up, then I'm actually going to have to say like, hey, I was wrong. That something I did wasn't actually the way I thought it was. Because I thought I was great. I thought I was a perfect person. I thought I was the best person ever. So as a result, like I wanted to keep that image, right? Like I wanted to make sure that this is how I look. This is how I was. So this apology piece for me shows weakness because it shows that they're wrong. For me, like I didn't want to show weakness by being wrong. So I never would say I was wrong. I would never say you were right. I would never say I'm sorry, because I didn't want to actually own up to the fact that I'm the one that did that. I'm the one that caused the hurt in the first place. Then there's also this aspect of empathy that plays in here, of the narcissist knowing and understanding empathy. Majority of narcissists at least know cognitive empathy, but there's this aspect of like, wait a second, like if I know that this person's hurting because of me, there's a piece that I know I should help, but I don't want to because if I help, then I will actually validate that what I did was wrong. What I did was hurtful to the other person. So as a result, it's like, let me avoid that as much as I can. Let me get away from that as much as I can versus actually owning it and saying, hey, this is what actually happened. Now, you have narcissists that you won't see an apology because they want to avoid it. They want to avoid like the shit that they've done. They want to avoid like, hey, this is the thing that I've actually caused. This is the pain that I've hurt. Now, with covert narcissists, sometimes you'll start to see that type of narcissist leverage an apology for more manipulation. Sometimes it's to get out of something. Sometimes it's to get you into something. Sometimes it's to convince you of something, whatever it might be. The whole aspect is sometimes there's the leverage here of using an apology for manipulation so the narcissist can get what they want or avoid what they're being held accountable. Now, again, You might be at the place where you're like, wait a second, mine started to apologize. Does that mean they have changed behavior? Maybe he's different now. Maybe he's actually learning. Maybe he's getting it. Well, the thing you have to understand is sometimes those apologies are fake. Sometimes those apologies are things that they're using to try to get you to stay in the relationship. Now, if you're getting ready to leave the relationship and there's apology, it's very suspicious versus like, wait a second, where were you the past 6 years where you could have apologized to this? Now I'm leaving, it matters. Now I'm leaving, it's changed. No, it doesn't work that way. Now you're actually setting to the other person. You're setting the example and you're saying, hey, I'm going to be independent of you. And they're like, no, you're not. Let me go ahead and bring you back. Let me apologize, quote unquote, to get to the place of saying, make sure you stay with me. Now, because a lot of times a narcissist, when they apologize, which doesn't happen very often, but when they do apologize, a lot of times it is fake. It is a way to be able to secure you, to be able to keep you in the relationship over and over and over again. You'll see this where you'll break up, they'll apologize, you'll get back together. You'll break up, they'll apologize, get back together. And this cycle will continue. And you'll be like, it's getting better. We've only broken up 5 times this month instead of 20. And you're like, but it still hasn't actually improved. It's just they've adapted, they've modified some of the things that they're doing and saying to be able to get to the end result of still being in control of you. So let's talk about some of the fake apologies that we see narcissists use. One of the aspects of a fake apology is where it is twisted around to be our fault. Now, narcissists will tell you that it's your fault time and time again because they don't want to be accountable. So it's like, let me avoid it. Let me put it on you. Let me project the pain. Let me project the stuff that's wrong onto you. So a narcissist a lot of times will put it on you. But then they'll drop the Y and then they'll have our fault. So it's your fault. Drop the Y. Now it's our fault. It's the same package. It's the same pile of shit that they're giving to you every single time. The difference is you actually accept it. So he's like, hey, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. You're like, no, it's not. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's actually our fault. Like we caused this together. It was our own issue. Like we both have some toxic traits, right? And so you're like, yeah, I guess I did respond bad that one time, after you beat me, like all these different things. Like you start to say different things, and then narcissist is like, yes, like she agreed. It's our fault, which means it's not my fault, which means it's her fault. So I'm off the hook. Literally, like that's like if you break it down step by step, like that's the thought process of let me put it on you so I don't feel bad about myself, and then it's no longer my fault because it's also your fault, which means it's not my fault. Okay? Then you have the aspect of narcissists that apologize that always use the but. I'm sorry, but. I wouldn't have done this, but this type of aspect. Like, but this happened. You're going to see this a lot of times with the narcissist that's apologizing, but they want to make it turned around back on you. So, I'm sorry that I screamed at you, but if you'd listened to me, I wouldn't have had to raise my voice. But I'm sorry I cheated on you, but if you wouldn't have, if you would have actually given me the sex I wanted, I wouldn't have gone out with that person. I'm sorry that I lied to you, but I was afraid that you'd be mad at me. So I decided not to tell you. Like always trying to flip it around and put it back on you. So that it's your fault. So it's not their fault. So they don't have any ownership of the actual fault, and it's all back on you. But it's subtle, right? Like, hey, I'm really sorry I did that. I shouldn't have done that. And then it goes into how you contributed to their actions, how you contributed to what they did wrong. End of the day, you need to know, like the narcissist makes their own decision. You don't force them to make a decision. You don't make them choose to cheat. You don't make them lie to you. You don't make them do anything. If anything, narcissists are like the least of the people that you actually can make do anything, but it's the most of the people that everybody thinks they can do something to change them. And you need to be understand the narcissist is making a decision every single day to do the things they do. Be like, but it's a disorder. It's still a decision. But like they're stuck that way mentally, it's still a decision. People just don't want to own it. They'd rather just slap a label on it and be like, oh, like it's fine, they do that. No, it's not fine. Just because they have a personality disorder doesn't mean they have to be abusive. You could look at me, you could look at Lee Hammock, you could look at other narcissists out there that are self-aware that are actually trying to work on themselves. There is a difference because there is a choice. People just don't only make the choice. All right. Sidetrack. So let's jump back on. Apologies that are fake. I'm sorry that you felt that way. Okay, so it seems like, hey, this is something that I'm apologizing for, but it's actually the only reason I'm apologizing is because you have an issue and because you actually brought this up because you felt this way. That's not reality. That's this, that's ridiculous. But you felt this way, so I'm sorry you felt that way. Like, kind of move through it. Okay. Then you have this aspect of like vague, where narcissists will apologize, but it's extremely, extremely vague. Like, there's no specifics. I'm sorry I didn't make the best decision. Like, no, you cheated on me for 2 years. Like, you need to get a little bit more like specific of like, do you actually know that this is wrong? Well, yeah, we just didn't have a good connection, and so there's going to be different pieces. That, like, you'll see an apology, but it'll be extremely vague. Okay, then you have apology without ownership, of like where they're apologizing, but they never take responsibility and ownership of their actions. Like, I'm sorry that happened, but this happened. Kind of going back to the butt a little bit. And then apology with distraction. So apologizing and then future faking, apologizing, then love bombing, apologizing, then gaslighting, all the different pieces there. So it feels like an apology, but it's just manipulating you to a different aspect, to a different way. So a lot of times you don't see an apology with a narcissist. But what you also don't see is like when a narcissist does apologize, you don't see specific accountability. Like, you don't see actual plans and actual steps of them to heal, grow, and change and develop. So like a narcissist will say, hey, I'm sorry that I'm yelling at you. And you're like, okay, what are you going to do different? And he's like, well, next time I just won't yell at you. And you're like, oh, great, he came up with the best idea ever. Like, no, like, it's not actually going to work because the narcissist is not going to actually implement that idea because there's nothing that I can actually do. Because they're not even working on their triggers or their emotions or the things that are going on underneath that are compelling them in that motion every single time. So you need to be able to have someone who's actually, if they're apologizing, that they have a specific accountability of how they're going to fix it, what they're going to work on. Asking for forgiveness specifically. I did this to you. This is what I actually did. Like, making sure they actually own it. If not, it'll just be very vague and you won't actually get a real apology. Then you have to make sure they're not quantifying it, they're not adding on to it. But like, nope, this is actually what it is. This is what it is. Now, end of the day, here's what the last thing you need to be able to know. An apology without changed behavior is manipulation. Say it again for the people in the back. An apology without changed behavior is manipulation. So you need to be able to understand if you're with a narcissist and they are apologizing time and time and time again, but you don't see any change in the relationship, you don't see any change in how they're showing up, understand that you're just being manipulated. At that point, you need to reach out for help. Would love to be able to talk to you. If you work with us, that's great. If you don't work with us, that's great too. But you need to find someone that's going to help you. If you want to work with me one-on-one, you can go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones. Would love to help you understand how we help people heal, grow, change, and develop. Work exclusively for people, like with people inside of our Thriver community, helping them with all the nuances, with all the small things. It's helping maximize who they are as they heal, and then as they start to grow and develop into the person that they're called to be. So check it out. Go to rawmotivations.com.